Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. This is a first, and I always love firsts on the show. This is the first time I am having a conversation and interviewing twins who are chiropractors. Dr. Michael and David Hughes, I had the pleasure of spending some time with in person at a TRP seminar, and we had a lot of laughs, and I was really inspired by some of the things that they're doing. But as you're going to hear, chiropractic is not their start. They've had a really interesting career in entrepreneurship, filled with successes and struggles, and they've crafted quite a great life for themselves. So I'll introduce you to them. Let's go one at a time. Dr. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dr. Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing
So,
great.
yeah, it's great to be on the show. Thank you. It was great having dinner with you and sitting down and swapping some of our wild stories. I was like, when I got the phone call you wanted us to have on your podcast, I was like, that's brave of you. Should be scared.
Well, you guys are known for having your own stories and probably your own podcast full of stories of all the crazy adventures you've been on. But one of the crazy adventures you've had has been building a really incredible chiropractic career with multiple clinics. We're going to get into this more in our conversation, but even just in the pre-chat, we've talked about you guys really dialing in on the things that you guys are good at, finding ways to work together. And I think this is going to be really unique. But Dr. Mike, why don't you start by telling us, like, how did you guys get started? Because, did you go to school at the same time? How did you transition from your first career into chiropractic? We got a lot to cover here in a short amount of time.
Yeah, we do. You know what? First, I'd like to just talk about we're first generation chiropractors, but I will tell you, my dad always wanted to be a chiropractor. He loved chiropractic. We grew up in a chiropractic family home. And so we saw miracles all the time when we were kids. Like my oldest brother was diagnosed as a bubble baby. He was allergic to everything he touched, smelled, felt. Everything on this planet was killing him. And through a chiropractic adjustment, it literally saved his life. After the last prognosis was from the medical doctor that if you put him in an incubator, he might live a couple of more months. And my dad was not okay with that. Took him to a chiropractor. They adjusted him, realized he had some upper cervical trauma and through the birthing process. And as soon as he wind up adjusting him, his boils and his rashes started to go away all over his skin. He started holding down his food and started putting down weight. And it literally saved my brother's life. And then my
Mm.
brother Dave had chronic asthma.
Yeah, it was like in middle school, I'm carrying around a inhaler because you never know when you're going to have an asthma attack, and I fall down on the ground, and all the middle schools are laughing, kids are laughing at you, and but it was through a specific series of chiropractic adjustments. I've never had asthma since.
So we were 14 and we knew that we wanted to be chiropractors. So it was something that we declared early on in our lives. We liked the lifestyle and the miracles that happened through the removal of the interference of the nervous system. And so that's why we wanted to be chiropractors. And so even though we were chiropractors, I do want to tell this part because it's a little bit crazy part of our story. We graduated from high school illiterate, so we couldn't read. We were dyslexic. We graduated at the bottom of our class. They shoot us through because we were such troublemakers. They were like, they were like, how do we get these guys out of high school? And so anyway, we wind up going to the junior college and we failed out for 2 semesters in a row. And we're like, wow, we got to figure out how our brains work. And then once we figured out how our brains started to work, we started to go back to school, wind up getting the high honor,
On the dean's
yeah,
high
the
honor
dean's high,
list.
yeah, the dean's
That's
high
when
honor
we
list.
finally learned how to learn.
Yeah. And then we
Mhm.
were all set to go to chiropractic school. So when we were in chiropractic school, we went to Parker and graduated in 2002. And then I remember we were in one of the assemblies on a Friday, which I loved going to those because they always brought in some of the big names. And one of the big names was was Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor was talking about, I remember when he said this, he said, you're never going to get rich just doing chiropractic. And Dave and I were like, dang, how are they not going to pull him off the stage for making a comment like that? And he
Hmm.
goes, if you're going to be wealthy, you're going to have to do it with multiple streams of income. And at the exact same time, we were introduced to the industry of network marketing, and well, kind of, it was an insurance company, and we wind up building a insurance brokerage all across the United States and Canada, one of the biggest in the company's history. And so we dropped out of chiropractic school and wind up building this very large brokerage. And we had great mentors. and to teach us how to be able to build successful systems and duplicate our success and replicate that. And so once we figured out the systems on duplication, then it was just game on.
But there were success principles that you can apply to any business. They're just business principles that we learned from good mentors and good books, and then it was really interesting because like how we got back into chiropractic was my brother Mike was he was kind of reached a place where he was pretty bored in life, and I had reached a place where I was pretty bored in life, and we'd accomplished every accolade you could really accomplish in that other business. And I was talking to my wife and I said, I just feel like there's something so much more I could be doing with my life. So much, I could be so much more productive. And my wife asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. Like, and chiropractic never crossed my mind. And right after I had that conversation with my wife, Mike calls up, must have been a total twin thing. And he says, Dave, he was like, we want to be chiropractors since we're 14 years old. We've never practiced together. What do you think about going to practice together? And I was like, dude, that is crazy. You're not going to believe the conversation I just had with my wife. And so from that call, we decided that we wanted to get back into chiropractic.
Yeah, but just the obstacles that we had to get back into chiropractic were pretty tall. And so it wasn't easy for us to do that. And there was a lot of opposition. And we started looking for practices all across the United States because we were looking for really like mega practices that were already systematized and something that we could walk into and just, pour some gas on the fire. But that's kind of like finding a unicorn. And so
Yeah.
we had a challenge with that. And then finally our state association called us up and said there's practice down the street. And it wound up being a huge blessing in disguise because the chiropractor was an amazing healer. And we were able to mentor with him and learn what 40 something years in practice and be able to learn his style of technique. And that was nice. And we didn't really realize that when we acquired the practice. He was only supposed to transition patients for 30 days. He wound up staying for a year and transitioned us on every one of his patients and didn't even charge us to do it. And so he just wanted us to know the things that he had spent a lifetime learning. And what we didn't realize is what a blessing that was because it now gave us something that was a little bit unique in chiropractic that we could brand and also scale.
Hmm. So, a couple of questions I have from this start story for you guys. So, you knew you wanted to be chiropractors when you were 14. You were in chiropractic school. You got inspired at a Parker seminar to like go into the insurance, business essentially. You had a great career doing that, but you were not in chiropractic school. You went back into chiropractic school at one point.
We dropped out, was it 2 semesters before graduation? And we always felt like we were going to come back. As a matter of fact, I'll tell that funny story. Dave was making a lot of money living in California, and I did not think he was ever going to come back. And so I came back and I started applying some of the principles that we had learned in business and applied them into my internship. I wound up recruiting, according to the dean, more people than anybody in the last 10 years of the school into the public internship. And so I called Dave and I was like, hey, Dave, I just got out of the dean's office. If you don't come back to school next semester, that's the deadline. You're going to lose everything. You'll never be a chiropractor. You're never, ever going to be able to come back. What he didn't know is that was a flat out lie. So,
That was a brother, like, I got your back, dude. Like, let me just tell
yeah.
you.
If I would have known that when I went back to finish school, I probably would have punched him. But
Yeah.
but I was telling that story outside of the auditorium from graduation, and that's when he tells me, dude, just so you know, that whole thing was a lie.
Well, because I knew he'd never come back. I mean, he was making a ton of money, and I was like, there's no way. But I was like, dude, I've got all these patients. I can dump them on you. You can come back to the internship. You'll be down in no time. And so he did. And I'm glad he did.
It worked out great, and I really appreciated that he that he pulled the wool over my eyes to get me to come back because I was very comfortable and I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, so now you both graduated in 2002
Yep.
from Parker, and you had all this knowledge of how to build a business from what you had already created. So it sounds like, Mike, you already been applying that in your clinic internship. So then how did that translate into, you guys graduated and then how much time was it between graduation and finding this clinic that you ended up buying?
10 years.
Okay, so what did you do in the meantime?
We were building our family business. And so traveling the world, and we wind up,
Started a seminar business, and we were
So you weren't practicing right after you graduated.
no, I didn't practice
Okay.
to 10 years after I graduated.
Okay.
yeah, that was one of the obstacles is whenever we try to get licensed in Colorado, the state had no idea how to handle that. They're like, what? I mean, Dave didn't even take part three boards. He took one, two, and four, but he didn't even take
Right.
three. So they didn't know how to handle that. They were like, that doesn't fit any of our rules.
Right. So when you say, Dave, you were talking to your wife and you're like, I'm kind of bored, that's the moment where you're like, oh, I want to go back to chiropractic.
No, I'd already finished. I went back and
Okay.
finished chiropractic school. We were only off about a year
Yeah.
from chiropractic school. And then I graduated, went back into the insurance business, did that for 10 years. And that's when the phone call came through and said, hey, let's do it. Let's make this happen. And the thing is like we realize that there's a lot of different, like what does success look like in chiropractic is really depends on what someone's vision is, and we can't paint that vision for them. But I can tell you for our vision is we did not want to get into chiropractic. Matter of fact, the reason why I didn't go back into chiropractic after graduating is because at that time I'd never met a really successful chiropractor in my mind. And
Hmm.
I mean, I met chiropractors that made a good living, but I never met somebody who was really, really successful, unless, of course, they, invented some new technology and then they sold it, and that's really where they made their money.
So just
But
to interrupt you for a sec, when you talk about successful, you're talking financial success. Like
financial
you had not met
success,
a chiropractor who to your expectation or your definition, had the level of financial abundance that you would classify. Okay.
yeah. And so, I mean, when you've already got multiple six-figure passive income, and then you're going to go back into chiropractic, like our decision was not to go back into chiropractic to build this small mom and pop shop, like we
Right.
wanted to build something big. But it did not come without challenges. And I think anytime you're trying to build or trying to achieve success and whatever that success looks like for you, you're going to have obstacles. And it was crazy the obstacles that we got into. I mean, we ended up getting kicked out of two of our first buildings.
Within
So
3 years.
within 3 years, we ended up getting drawn into a lawsuit with one of our landlords. We uh, we we switched EHR software 3 times for a little bit. I thought our main business was onboarding software. So it was like there was just so many obstacles that held us back from expansion and growth. And then once we finally got everything settled and dialed in, and
Well,
that's
what
when we decided to expand.
Yeah, and one of the things too, not just the obstacles, but it's the finances because we came in with prepared to scale and grow and build a very large business, which we did great. I mean, as soon as we acquired that first practice, we wind up tripling it for the first year, and then the second year was doubling it. I don't know if we've ever had less than 15% growth since we started working together. That was
12
back,
years ago.
yeah, 12 years ago, and it's only gotten better since. But one of the challenges to the financials, it's like when we got kicked out of each one of the properties. I mean, you're talking another $100,000 in tenant improvements, and it's like, you get hit again and again with that. It man, a lot of those obstacles, it would be enough to check out most doctors. They'd just be like, I'm done, man. I got to find something else to do. But Dave and I knew what we wanted to do. We knew what we wanted to create. And then once all of that got behind us, that's when we started working on systems, duplications, and building teams that would allow us to be able to scale. So one of the things that we're big on is a lot of the automation. And I feel like a lot of things that we're putting into our business, I've never even seen in the chiropractic space. So it allows us to be able to, I mean, people are one of the biggest problems that you have in business is just managing the people. And we're creating systems that automatically manage the people, especially with AI. That's just a whole entire game changer, implementing some of those things. And so that has allowed us to be able to do things in a scale. Like we
With
acquired,
less people.
Yeah, with much less people, but we've been able to scale and or acquire 8 practices in the last 2.5 years, and so that's pretty challenging for most people to be able to do that. And I think it's because of the systems that we're putting together that allow us to scale at that rate. But that's where we're going, is to be able to build something that allows us to have, we figured 33 practices would be a good number for our practice, and then we'll start to talk about slowing down, but.
So, a couple of things I'd like to ask you here. I mean, if we can get into a couple of practical ideas, like you've talked about systems and scale and automation, and I'm sure there's got to be some things that other doctors listening to this could apply to help them out or just get them thinking a little bit outside the box a little differently. But the other is growth. You've talked about never having a year that's been like 15% growth every year is standard for you guys. Like, what are the things that you guys have found consistently have grown your practices?
So I think a lot of it has to do with philosophy and leadership. So for example, we had a doctor that my brother Mike was talking to him, and he said, "Hey, how do you grow this clinic? You're the clinic director of this clinic. How do you grow that?" And he mentioned several ideas of how he could grow it. He goes, "How could you take that beyond that?" And he was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess work harder." And he said, "Here's how you do it. You train another doctor to be as good as you." And he was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, because that now I got, I'd have to train them, and then that could change the dynamics, and that'd be weird culture." And he just cut him off, and he says, "Hey, let me correct something real quick. We're a growing organization, and that type of thinking is not growing. So how do you set that?" So when I talk about philosophy and leadership, that's an example of what I'm talking about. Like, some people may not see, how do I get to the next level? And we have to help them see that so that we can continue to think in growth mode all the time.
And let me kind of answer your question. One of the things that we did is, when we started getting things pretty smooth in business, we set a yearly goal and like a theme. And our theme was, the first year was, we want to simplify. And so, like, how do we simplify everything in our business to the most common denominator? And so we started looking at ways that we could do that. We had one of our employees that couldn't even make the cut because she couldn't figure out how to simplify to the level that we're talking about. Like, every meeting that we were to have was all about simplify, simplify, simplify. The very next year, it was like, hey, that was fantastic. Now let's focus on automation. And so, like, how do we automate any process we do more than once? So then we built in automation tools. And then the next year, we're like, well, dang, Simplify was a great year. Automation was a great year. How do we top that? Okay, well, the third year, let's do Simplify and Automate. And so then everything was about, how do we simplify the automation? And so those were some of the things that we put in place that allowed us to be able to scale. Because I'll tell you, if you don't have those things in place and you're not putting an initiative to that, then chaos winds up being super expensive. And systems, they're boring. Building them are kind of boring. We get excited about it. I mean, it keeps us up at night. But the more boring it is, the bigger you win.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is that like when it comes to like your marketing, whether it comes into your in communications or like you found a way using your vision and the philosophy that you have to build a team and obviously you're doing some external marketing or internal marketing, but you're being consistent with it obviously and you found ways to automate it.
Yeah.
Can you give me
I
an
think that's
example?
I think to yeah, I mean, that gets into
Well, look, like, I mean,
very
docs
deep
are going
into
to be hearing
stuff.
this, and like, you guys have got multiple practices. You're running high volume clinics. So, how are you bringing the people in? Like, in that, like, so we can talk about simplification, which is great. Everyone wants to simplify. It's one of my signature programs too. But, like, how have you simplified your message? Like, have
Well,
you,
just talking about getting new patients, like, someone can go to our website, and um, they can put in their information that they want to know more. They can take advantage of a new patient special and prepay for that appointment on the website. They can schedule their appointment, and then they can do their new patient paperwork, and no one ever talked to them.
mm,
So all of that was like one of the first things that we automate, and that's simple stuff. But then
mm,
we've created a bunch of other automations on the back end as well to support that process, just to make it easy. So when I say automate, that is booking a patient and a person did not have to do it.
Right. Do you
So
want to add
I
anything,
think there's
Mike?
another, when it comes to growth, I think there's another important thing, and that's pricing structure. So like, you look at the inflation of where inflation has gone, and some people keep charging the same prices, and you're going in reverse if you do that. And so we're constantly keeping eyes on that, and we are not afraid to raise our prices. If inflation's going up, then we're gonna be raising our prices with inflation, because we're not gonna go backwards. I think it's interesting that the guy that we bought the practice from, he was charging $50 for 15-minute appointments. And that was the same pricing structure he had for probably 20 years.
Hmm.
Really should have been charging more like $200 per visit, because the level of service he was providing, it was definitely not equal.
Hmm.
So I think it's interesting, because I sat down with there was a chiropractor that was struggling, and I took him out to lunch, and he was a sports med chiropractor, which is different than what we do as a family practice. Um, and so we were just talking business, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, how much time do you normally spend with a patient?" Knowing that he would spend more time than I do. And he said, "Well, I normally spend about 30 to 45 minutes." I said, "What do you charge on average for that?" And he was almost justifying the cost for the time that he gives. And he says, It's usually about 45 minutes." And in my mind, I'm thinking, holy,
45 minutes for him.
$45. And I'm thinking, you're making less than a massage therapist.
Whew.
And
Yeah,
and
no
so
kidding.
and then my response was, I go, I know our business is different, but I might spend 5 minutes with somebody and make $80, just doing an adjustment. And and then he got defensive. He was like, "Yeah, but you're not, you're not giving that time to them." And I explained to him, I was like, "Look, let me clarify something. I had a patient that came in after an auto injury from 6 years previously. She'd gone through all of the, medical care, never saw a chiropractor. She had brain damage, closed head brain injury. And I've done this twice in my career." And I asked her, I said, "Hey, I said, what is do you mind if I video record your first adjustment?" And so she thought, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, "Because I want to document the miracle that is about to take place in your life." That's how confident I was going to help this lady. And so I actually did a cranial adjustment, just a simple drop of the table cranial adjustment, external on the back of her skull. And that one adjustment, after 6 years of having the accident, she didn't tell us this in the intake because she didn't think it was a chiropractic issue. She hasn't been able to smell or taste since the accident for 6 years.
Hmm.
And that was restored after doing that cranial adjustment. I didn't know that. She reported back to me on the second adjustment. Her balance was restored. She could stand on her weak leg, which she normally had no balance. And then I asked that guy, and I said, "What was that one 30-second, not even 30-second adjustment worth to that patient to
Hmm.
have her taste and her smell restored after 6 years?" It's
Hmm.
priceless. You can't put a price on that. And
No, and it reminds me of the time someone challenged me on, because all I do in my practice, similar to you guys, is a chiropractic adjustment, and people are in and out kind of quick sometimes. And the people that I see and have attracted to my practice love that. When they give me feedback, it's like, I love how fast it is. I love the efficiency. They feel connected to me. Like they're feeling, obviously, it's a value for them. And one time someone challenged me, and I said, people aren't basing their success with me on how much time they're spending with me. They're looking at the results, right? And
exactly.
so, it's a different conversation to be having with people. But and look, docs, listeners, like I'm here to remind you, like you get to build a practice that's right for you. And hopefully what you've already heard is that these two humans have kept following their own clarity, their own certainty, have kept asking themselves questions, and they're leaning into what their own definition of success is like. And so you need to be building a practice that aligns with you wherever that looks like. The kind of life that you guys have and the number of practices you guys have is absolutely nothing that I want any part of in my life, right?
Mhm.
Like we can full stop say that. And I think it's really important for people to remember like you get to evolve and build a practice that you want. Something that seems clear from the beginning for you guys is you always dream big. Like you
Yeah.
want impact and scalability and um, that's always, whether it's the insurance thing or it's a chiropractic thing. Have you guys always been, as a twins, like always aligned on what your vision has been? Or have there ever been ch times when you're like, I want to do this, no, I want to do this?
I think we're probably more aligned than more than any two humans on the planet.
Yeah.
So we essentially share each other's brains. But
Yeah.
there's definitely disagreements and there's definitely opinions, but usually we express those opinions and then we come to alignment on that.
Almost all of the disagreements, it's because we're using words that the other person didn't understand, but we're saying the exact same thing. So it's
Right.
like once we restate it, we're like, well, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm saying. So that would be an argument, with us. Other
So
than
it
that,
just comes
we're
back to communication, which is
yeah,
all relationships.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which, speaking of communication, I find this intriguing. Like you mentioned at the beginning, how you graduated from high school illiterate. And so what spurred the desire to learn and to get you back on track? Like, was there a moment? Was there a reason? Like, was there a different teacher? Like, was it just your own passion?
We had a lot of dream stealers in our life because when we decided to be chiropractors at 14 years old, having the learning disabilities, struggling in school our entire life, the people that are closest to us, um, some even family members, were big dream stealers, and they're like, "Dude, seriously, you're never gonna make it in college. You might as well just drop out. You guys know how to cut each other's hair. Why don't you just become barbers?"
Mm,
And so that literally, and those are people that love us or telling us that kind of advice. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's the fighter spirit in both of us, but it was like that was not okay. Like that was fuel to our fire. And after we graduated and we failed out of junior college after 2 semesters and they literally kicked us out of school, it was humbling because it was like, what are we gonna do? Like how are we gonna become chiropractors? Like this is and I think a lot of people would have just been, we're done. Like that was totally unrealistic and we need a shift and pivot and do something different with our lives. But we I think probably the biggest thing is we started learning how to read by reading the scriptures and getting close to God.
mm,
Mhm.
hmm.
And so my mom bought us the
Cassette tapes.
cassette tapes of the scriptures and we listened to them and we followed along with the words and we started reading more and more and more. And then we decided to go to a different college that we've never gone to before, that we don't know anybody, we'll have less distractions. And it was also a junior college. And our first math class was single digit addition.
Hmm.
Our first English class was Jack and Jill went up a hill. What's a noun? What's a verb? But here's what happened is we started with these basic classes. It built our foundation. It built our confidence. We made straight A's in every one of those classes. And then as we continue to build on that foundation, by the time we graduated with our bachelor's degree, we ended up on the Dean's High Honor List with 3.85 GPA.
I will say one thing that was nice about just having learning disabilities too is that we wind up getting a full ride scholarship too, which we most certainly took advantage of that. So it
Hmm.
wound up paying for all of our undergrad and allowed us to be able to catapult right into chiropractic school.
Hmm. The term dream stealers, that says a lot in 2 words. And I'm curious yes, you already mentioned, Dave, that you guys have a fighter spirit, and certainly part of it is your personality. But let's face it, people listening to this, we all have dream stealers in our lives, right?
Mhm.
People and sometimes it is the people that you love the most that are on some level jealous or resentful or insecure or whatever their reasons are. It's not usually about us, it's about their own stuff, right? But how have you, and I want you each to answer this because you're the same but different.
Mhm.
How, like, what got you guys through that? Like, do you have, obviously you have faith, so maybe there's some of that, but are there still things to this day that you find help you get through difficult people, difficult things? Mike, you can go first.
Well, a thought that came to my mind is when I knew that we were struggling when we were younger in school. One thing I did realize is we were 8 and 10 years old and we were rebuilding, the lawnmower and the weed eater, and we're tearing apart all these machines. And we're in high school rebuilding transmissions and engines and racing cars. And I'm like, our friends are like, dude, how do you know how to do that? I'm like, how do you not know how to do that? So I just knew that our brains were different from an early
Mm,
age.
mm,
And then once we went into college, we learned how our brains functioned. And then, we had some self-esteem issues when we were younger, but as we started to develop and focusing on our strengths and not really focusing on our weaknesses per se, then it just gave us more and more um, confidence in who we are and what we wanted to create. And then if somebody told us no, those dream stillers, oh my gosh, that was fuel to the fire. We would, whatever they told us we couldn't do, we would do it just to oppose them.
I would answer your question, Melissa,
mm.
by saying it's really it's that twin thing, like we're always so close and to each other. So like for those of you who are our generation, you might remember Wonder Twin Power form a chiropractor. Uh, so we were it really I think that support with each other that's like, hey, we're gonna do this together.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you know, clearly everyone has their struggles in life, right? And what always comes up in every conversation I have with people is finding the right people around you. And you guys are fortunate to have each other with your sibling relationship. Some for other people, it's finding the right mentorship, it's the right friends, the right partners. Who you surround yourself absolutely matters. And finding that tribe that's going to lift you up is crucial. Have you guys had mentors and coaches throughout your career? You mentioned that the gentleman you bought the practice from turned out to be a mentor for you for the first year of that first practice. But what else have you guys done over your career? What's been most impactful?
Well, again, we played baseball all the way up to college, and so we've always had a coach in baseball. When we got into building the legal brokerage, we sought out some of the people that had made tens of millions of dollars personally and asked them, "How do we build this?" And they were like, "I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. Don't deviate, and you'll be at the top of the compensation plan within a record time." We followed exactly what they did, and it wound up being true. We've always believed in having coaches. I think that if you're hanging around, small people, you're going to think small, and so we're always seeking out the sharpest people in the room. And so when we got into chiropractic, one of the very first things we did before we even bought the practice is that we said, well, let's go hire the best coach. And so we called around some of our friends and colleagues in the profession. We were like, who's the best coach? And a few people were like, hey, call this guy. So we call him up and we wind up coaching with them. And we got to the point where it was
We
really,
we paid $25,000 upfront for that coaching program before we ever even bought a clinic.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, we wanted to make sure that we didn't reinvent the wheel in chiropractic. We're like, look, other people have already done this. We just need to follow what's already been proven and successful. And so we got to a point with that coaching program that they had said, "Hey, your vision is outpaced our ability to coach you." And
Hmm.
so we're like, "Thank you for the honesty." And so we started looking for someone else. And then we wind up, where we met at the Remarkable Practice with Stephen Franson, and we met Stephen Franson, wound up coaching with him for the last 10 years, which has had a tremendous impact in our success and learning how to be able to grow and have people to be able to bounce off of. And so it's an amazing community of very sharp-minded chiropractors. So,
I think we've had great mentors both clinically and then also business. I mean, the business mentors that we had were a lot of them were even before we got into chiropractic. And some of those mentors, it's interesting because there's so many mentors out there, but you have to seek them out. And
Hmm.
it's not they're not going to come knocking on your door.
Hmm.
But you seek out those mentors, and we did that. We would go to all the seminars. We would try to find who is the sharpest people in the room. Who can we be mentored by? We'd take them out to lunch, take them out to dinner. Just get to know them and build a relationship with them. That's actually how we found Dr. Stephen Franson was,
Hmm.
seeking him out. So um, we definitely have a lot of mentors both on the clinical side, and I think that's one thing that makes us unique. And one of the things that's unique about our practice is that we do have a very specialized technique in chiropractic because of what we learned from the doctor we bought the practice from. And so we have branded that, but then we also have the business acumen to be able to scale and grow to build something that we wanted to build.
and one more thing back on the mentors is that, before we even had a lot of real life mentors, we started reading books. I mean, once we started understanding the whole world of personal development. We started reading some of the great classics, like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and How to Win Friends by Dale Carnegie. And when we started reading these books, that started leading us to other books. And then we discussed that as a family. We started a mastermind family. Within our family, we started a mastermind and we started discussing all these great ideas. And that spurred on all kinds of success within our own family members. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, we didn't, our family didn't come from much, but now you look at what all of the siblings have done and they've all created magnificent businesses.
Hmm. Well, you guys clearly had the entrepreneurial spirit early in life, right? Like
Yeah.
you had it, and you've mentioned a few times, like the principles that you learned from building the insurance business, and how that translated into the clinic when you were doing your internship and then into your practice. Are there anything like specific? Because docs are always curious about like what other industries are doing and how those same principles can apply to our practices as chiropractors. And sometimes they translate and sometimes they don't. But clearly you found some things that do. And I'd be curious to know if there was one or two things that you found really worked well from your experience in the insurance network marketing company that you built into chiropractic practice.
I think probably one of the biggest things, and that's why you recruited so many patients in the public internship, was one of the things that we did in the insurance business is a lot of employee benefits with corporations. And so we would
Mm,
get in to call the decision maker and tell them, hey, look, we can offer this product that can save you money and keep people from getting sick and and having more people at work, which is going to increase your bottom line. So we'd go in there and do a pitch and sign up all those people on as an employee benefit. Well, you know, what's interesting was one of the things that Mike did when his internship was he started volunteering for the American Heart
Yeah,
Association.
as American Heart
He
Association.
volunteered time for the American Heart Association, and one of his job was to make sure that all of the booths were manned and that somebody was there that could run those booths at all of those fairs or health fairs. And so he was like, he asked his boss, and he was like, can I also have a chiropractic booth at all of these locations? So he knew where all of the American Heart Association booths were across Dallas. And so he ended up going around and doing that. And he would contact the corporations just like we did, in the insurance business, contact the point of contact, get in, set up a booth, and then show what we do in chiropractic.
It just came down to networking. It's like we
right.
learned we learned how
Relationship
to,
building.
yeah,
Yeah,
relationship building and I mean, I went into the American Heart Association asking, how can I serve your organization?
without pay.
Yeah, like I wanted to volunteer, and so most people are not willing to do that, but it led into just a huge whale of an opportunity. And then when it came into practice, the same thing. It's like it's all about networking and building those relationships, and we've got great relationships in our community, and they've led us to some great people. And like it's like one thing. We had a lady that came in that wound up having really bad anxiety, and through a matter of a handful of chiropractic adjustments, her anxiety was all but gone. And she went to go talk to her mom and dad, who are huge, they have a huge, church in town. And so they wind up building or telling them. It's a really funny story
Yeah.
because the mom had a really bad experience with a chiropractor. She didn't like chiropractors. And so anyway, she was like, Mom, she was like, I got to tell you about my chiropractic appointment. And so she was like, yeah, what happened? She was like, my anxiety is all but gone. And she was like, are you serious? He was like, yeah, Mom, I'm telling you, I met Jesus. And so she was like, you need to go meet these guys. And so she came into the office, and her and her husband had their own amazing experience. And we didn't even know this, but they went the next Sunday and did an entire sermon on chiropractic. And
Huh.
so, like, you would think that they were teaching some philosophy seminar within our profession. And so, and we got the recording of it. That's how we found out they did this. But we knew on Monday morning because the phone rang and it never stopped ringing.
Right.
And so it's like,
They had 100 people from that congregation came through in 1 month
yeah,
as new
Wow.
just in
patients.
the first month, yeah. But
Mhm.
anyway, but building those relationships, I think, is really important. And we learned how to communicate and find out what's important for people and talk in their language and what motivates them, and that helps a lot too.
Mm. It's funny, you said that your patient called you Jesus. Someone this morning called me Moses, but they're like, if you were a man, I'd call you Moses because I don't know what you're doing to me, but you're suddenly I'm sleeping better. And I'm like, well, let
Hey,
me tell you what happens with the adjustment in the brain and blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
So
that's
it's
great.
entertaining and joyful what people say to us.
Mhm.
Okay, so you had an interesting start in chiropractic. You've had a ton of interesting experiences. You are still clearly inspired to grow your business, to grow from, 8 practices to 33. What is the driving force behind your inspiration these days, Mike?
Well, one of my inspirations is just acquiring practices that the growth and working the deal, and just trying to make it a fair thing for somebody maybe is trying to exit out of practice and having some type of a soft landing for exit. That's a whole nother topic in itself, but it's really sad that a lot of these chiropractors don't start with the end in mind. They wind up working an entire career, 30, 40 years, and then they sell this practice. It's really not even worth peanuts because it's not transferable. It's most
Hmm.
certainly not durable. And and so I want to be able to help those guys as much as possible, but sometimes it's at the end of their rope and they're just wanting to check out. And
Hmm.
so, but the acquisition's what keeps me up at night. It's working the deals. It's coming up with something that's a win-win-win for everybody involved and the creative processes. A lot of our growth, our bankers get mad at us because they're like, "Hey, when are you going to pull us into the deal?" And I was like, "We don't need you." We've had financial guys trying to throw some money at us. It was like, "Hey, we want you guys to join us or whatever. Here's some money." And we're like, "No, we don't need your money yet because we're coming up with all these creative deals."
Mike is
Hmm.
more the on the acquisition side of things, and so that's where he puts most of his efforts. And I'm more the systems guy.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because we went to a chiropractic seminar down in Denver, and we decided to take a lunch break, and it was just him and I. We sit down at a steak restaurant, and I mentioned an idea to him that I was almost joking about. I was like, it'd be it'd be really interesting if we created this idea, and I explained it all to him, and I said it with a laugh thinking it was sounded so silly, and Mike just gets quiet, doesn't respond, and he says, dude, that is freaking brilliant. So I was like, oh, okay. It was okay. And so we took that idea, ran with it, and developed that system, and now it helps us tremendously in our practice.
Yeah.
So you're inspired essentially by the business, like your business excites you, which it certainly doesn't for all docs.
Yeah.
Growth excites us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the challenge of, how do we keep growing, and, um, but I'd be amiss if I didn't say this either, because this is a lifestyle, podcast, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to say that I married my high school sweetheart and I've got five absolutely beautiful girls. And Dave's got, 3 kids and
His wife is named Sherry, and so is mine.
man, we had to date a long time to set that up. No, I'm just kidding. And so anyway, but I want to say that we're building this so that we can spend time with our family, and our family's all involved. My wife is the COO. His wife is involved with the new patient concierge. I've got 2 kids down in Texas running the practice down there. Dave's got 2 kids that are in undergrad, about to go to chiropractic school. And so it's a family business for us. And we also treat anybody who is actually not blood relative like they're our family too.
Hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're building something that's really sustainable. There's a lot of doctors that get burnout, and we want to make sure that our doctors are very well taken care of and that they get to build like Stephen Franson always says, it's a remarkable practice around a remarkable life. We want our doctors to experience that same lifestyle as well. And
Hmm.
so we might have sprints and certain times that we're busting our butts and working till 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and our family's not calling us saying, "Hey, dinner was served at 6 o'clock. Where are you at?" And they just know that this is a sprint. And
Hmm.
we're going to be busting our butts for a little bit until this project gets completed. And then when that project is completed, we party like rock stars and we go travel and we have fun with our families and do great things.
Well, and that's, I mean, if Mike's not at work, he's on his boat.
That's true.
So we like to play and have fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll just close down the office. It's like, "Hey guys, it's Wednesday. It looks like it's a little slow. Let's go have a boat day." And so we'll close down the office and wind up, just taking the whole team out. So
You guys didn't like fun. I think you wouldn't, you've had a different experience in your adolescent time.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It ain't work if you're having fun.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like legacy is something that drives you both, right?
Yeah.
You're working hard because you love the creative pursuit. You guys clearly have an entrepreneurial spirit at heart. And guys, listeners, remember, like we are all different. The goal of this conversation is not to have you sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough because I don't have multiple practices and I don't want that. Like the goal is to get clear on what you want, which you two have clearly done over and over again. And also to lean into your strengths. Like you two have strengths that I don't have, and you have vision that I don't have for certain things. And you surround yourself with the people that will support you in that vision as well. But it's important to lean into your strengths, right? And what's keeping you up at night, Mike, is different than what keeps me up at night when I think comes to creativity and business and things that I'm trying to plan. So, listeners, I really hope you take that to heart. Like the goal is to help you be inspired by interesting conversations with cool people doing cool things and open your eyes to what's possible for yourself by some people who are living their own rockstar doctor life.
And I would just say, man, for those that are listening, be intentional about your future. It's like it's so easy to get in the grind and just taking care of your patients day after day after day after day. And then you start to realize you're about to retire. It's like be intentional, start with the end in mind, find out what you want to create now, and then go chase it. And so, it's going to be different for all of us. But I think that's one thing that Dave and I, from the very first conversation, we knew what we were going to create from the first conversation that we said we're going to go into practice together. Literally that first phone call when I called him when he was talking to his wife. So we were brainstorming what that future practice was going to look like. And we wanted to make the biggest impact we possibly could in the communities that we served. And so that was, front and center. And so I would say that's important is making sure that you have a really good clarity around what you want to create.
I'll share one more thing. Just having the sales background with the insurance business, it was built on a network marketing, multi-level business structure, and with that structure, somebody would say, "Hey, how many policies did you sell?" And they're like, they would brag. And they're like, "Oh, I sold 2,000 policies." And then I'm like, "Oh, that's great. That's really good." And then they asked me, and they was like, "How many policies did you sell?" I sold 200,000 policies. And they're like, "That's not even possible." And the reason why it's possible is because I did it with a team. They did it all by themselves.
Right.
So I took that principle also into chiropractic. So I could be the most amazing chiropractor and I can serve my community, but how can I serve more people in my community? Teach others to do what I do, and then we can have a bigger impact.
Mhm.
Mhm. So what's next for you guys?
More
Well,
Besides more
practices.
time on your boat with your family, you've
yeah, I
got
mean,
eight clinics so far. So clearly, listeners, if you're wanting to connect with these doctors, be sure to check the show notes because as you keep building and acquiring practices, whether that's taking over existing practices or starting things new, I'm sure you're looking for inspiring, engaging docs who want to join your team. So we'll make sure we put some links in the notes there. But yeah, what's next for you guys?
right now we're just staying we're staying focused in the Colorado markets and the Dallas Fort Worth market. Those Dallas Fort Worth is our new place that we're starting to expand, and we're really excited about expanding out there. And then as we get a little bit further, we'll start looking at different locations. But right now we're trying to stay centralized, so it makes it easier to manage.
And our website is staywelladjusted.com. And so if anybody wants to acquire, the thing is that a lot of times it's hard to find a good associate position. And some people, that's all they want. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
want to take care of patients. Give me a good
Yeah, they don't
place.
want to do anything in the business. That's why you guys talking about all the ways that business excites you. I can guarantee there's listeners who are like they turned off that conversation. They're like,
Yeah,
that doesn't excite me whatsoever. But they love being in their communities. They love providing information. They love adjusting. They like the clinical side. So yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
Dave. There's a role for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Any final thoughts? I think this was a really unique conversation. I'm thankful that we were able to find a time that worked for all three of us. Um, Something that I've been asking people with this new series is like, what would you tell a new grad? Because you
Mm.
have kids in chiropractic school. My youngest son is in chiropractic school right now, and it's different. Time is different than in 25 years ago when we graduated, right? So, Dave, what would you tell new grads right now?
Hmm. Man, that's a lot. I would say probably just learn how to be the great chiropractor you can be, the greatest
Yeah.
chiropractor you can be. Surround yourself around those people who have what you would like to get, whatever it is, whether it's a specific type of technique or a different type of business structure that you would like to create. Surround yourself around those people now or even after graduating, so that you can learn what it's going to take to get there.
Yeah, I would say that, most students, they walk into school, they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And that's a dangerous
Yeah.
situation. And so it's like get around people who can inspire you to do what you really want to do in chiropractic, whether it be a clinician or whether it be on the business side. So if you want to be on
Mhm.
the business side, you really should encourage seeking out a coach that aligns with you
Yeah.
and join that coach when you're in school so that they can already start shaping your mind on what you want to create to launch that practice. If you're going to launch a practice, if you're going to be an associate, then great, be the best caregiver you can be, and then find
Mhm.
somebody that you can partner with within a coaching program that's building something like what we're building, where you can wind up partnering with somebody who can mentor you maybe on clinical stuff like our technique or on the business side if you ever want to, go and expand after being an associate for a while. But seek out those mentors for sure because they will help you save a lot of time and money and heartache and speed up your success.
Yeah. And something that has come through many times this conversation and something you kind of just alluded to, Dave, at the end there is like your certainty and confidence in what you do will always carry you through, whether it's building relationships, whether it's going into new places, whether it's just getting results in your practice. And that is the foundation of success, right? It's knowing
Mhm.
what you know, honoring it, continuous learning, being around the right people, but building that own confidence and certainty. I mean, that's something that's a game changer for docs of all seasons of practice.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, thanks so much, listeners. I know this was a little bit longer than usual, but look, I had two people to chat with here, and I didn't want to. We could have gone a lot of different directions. Be sure to check out the show notes. Be sure to follow what these docs are doing. If you have questions, reach out to them directly. Guys, I look forward to seeing you in person sometime again and having some laughs. But until then, I want to thank you for your time and all that you share with our listeners today.
Hey,
Thank you,
sounds
Dr.
great.
Melissa.
Bye
Great being
bye.
here. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
take care, y'all.